So, welcome Mimi to Conversations with Robin. We have Mimi Bobo today. So, thank you for coming, Mimi. I'm excited.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yes,
I'm
because
so excited.
I love your energy. You're always, always, always just have great energy about you, and which I truly appreciate. Because especially times like these, we all need good energy around us, right? So,
Yep.
where are you from?
So I'm from Georgia.
Okay.
Um, and I grew up in Woodstock, Georgia. So it's very like suburban, um, you know, Bible Belt of the South.
Yeah. I didn't know that you grew up in Woodstock. I did not know that. I knew
Oh,
it was, but I
well,
didn't know it was Woodstock. Okay. Okay.
yeah, Woodstock. And I've moved around a little bit, but I've always been in Georgia.
Okay.
So
So the Bible Belt. So the South is very like religious and I don't know the exact words I would say, but strictly Christian or like with like how would you describe it?
um I would say the Bible Belt is definitely like uh for those of you who don't live in the Bible Belt, it's like there's a church for every Starbucks there is in like a major city. Like every street corner has a church building. And that could be from, Presbyterian, Catholic, Church of God to non-denominational
Yeah.
Baptist, so anywhere.
What sector were you raised in, if you don't mind me asking that part?
I love this question. Um, so I grew up I would say um Southern Baptist is pretty much like my foundational upbringing. Um, and I'm sure my parents would probably agree with that. Um, so I would say mostly Baptist. I kind of jumped to not more non-denominational,
Mhm.
um, which can kind of be a little bit of everything and anything because there is like no label.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say all of the ones I did attend leaned more towards Baptist like traditions.
Okay. Do you feel like that growing up in that Baptist tradition, is it I feel like anything with labels, like it kind of ties us down to a certain thing, to what we put that label on. And it kind of restricts us as people, as souls. You know what I mean? Just evolving. Like, did you feel like it was a big restriction for you, just in general?
I would say like painting the picture of my family, which hi mom and dad if you're seeing this one day. Um, but so like half, I'd say half my family kind of knows where I'm at now. So if they see this, then this welcome, and we're gonna have a nice, this will be your intro. But
You're just who
I
you are, though, right? Which is,
right.
mm,
So I would say like because my parents don't live here in Georgia
mm,
and some of my other siblings live in other states, there hasn't been time or space to have these kind of conversations,
yeah,
um, because it's something that takes a lot of time and I want to do in person.
yeah,
Um, so I'm sure they have their own narrative of how this was, and I think each of my siblings also has their narrative. Um, but I'll just be speaking for my personal experience. Um, so when it comes to like restriction, I would say initially growing up, um, I in my younger years, I did not feel that way.
mhm,
I didn't feel that it was restrictive, because I was just so young and it was, Awanas and, you know, um, VBS
mhm,
and youth group, like maybe younger. It was like camps. It was like fun stuff, and it was all very much very general, not super deep theology at that point. It was, you learn about God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and God loves you and he sent his son to die for you, and
Right.
isn't that so great? So I feel like my younger years, no.
Hmm.
Um, and I was technically saved and baptized when I was 7.
Okay.
So I was really young. Um, so that's when I would have said my personal relationship with God started at 7.
Yeah.
Um, so, but then I would say as the older I got, the more I would feel that it's restrictive. And then now I've completely deconverted. So now looking back on it, would say that it is very restrictive.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, from my personal experience.
Okay. Okay. Um, well, and I like that you say that, with with your sisters, it could be a whole different narrative because everyone, and with your parents too, right? Because I have two other siblings, but we all grew up in the same household and we all have our different narratives about growing up or just the world in general. You know what I mean? Like we all see
Hmm.
things so differently anyway. So now that you said that you kind of gotten away from that religion, um, may I ask, do you believe anything right now?
I would say now because labels and me have a weird relationship. Um,
With
but for this, but like for the sake of, I put labels on things or use terms because it helps people orient in the conversation. So I would say right now, at this point in the journey, I would say I'm more like agnostic,
Mhm, mhm,
um, because that feels right
yeah,
at the moment.
yeah,
Um, but I would say for a while, when I was like deconstructing or deconverting, whatever you want to call
mhm,
it, uh, I I wanted to like stay away from labels
mhm,
because I felt like people could like it was like a shortcut to getting to know me and like having really hard conversations about what I actually believe and why I believe that.
mhm,
Um, and so I thought, well, it's like, oh, it's just so you can put me in a box and like, maybe never think deeper about that again, or, maybe dismiss me or whatnot. But I've since then, over a couple of years, I've gotten away from thinking that way because I think people need some sort of touchstone to like be like, I know where you're at. Um,
with like,
but yeah, initially I felt that way, but now I don't. So,
well, do you mean like that with like labels just in general, or like, because I know you said that you kind of shy away from labels, which I totally get. Like I was saying, like it literally it restricts us. Like labels restricts us from being who we are. You know what I mean? So I totally get that.
yeah, I would say, um, I think it's helpful in a lot of dialogue and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think sometimes it's a very lazy way out. Um, but if it's someone that I don't feel like we're gonna go deeper or whatnot, I don't really mind if they, maybe just kind of put me in a box and forget about it.
Mhm,
But for those in my life that I deeply care about, like we're gonna have that further conversation. So I
mhm,
normally am like, I'm agnostic today
mhm,
because tomorrow I could be like, I'm an atheist or, because I'm very like open-handed with it now. So I feel like if anything, the whole experience that I've gone through, it's proven that like I can change my mind
mhm,
and I've been able to admit that I'm wrong.
mhm.
And that was really hard
I
to
was
be wrong.
I was gonna ask,
So
like, do you feel more like is it empowering to to admit like, okay, I am wrong about this. Like, you know what I mean? Like to kind of let that hold go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it was a very mixed bag of emotions.
Mhm.
Um, because it was very long.
Okay.
It was a very years and years of a process.
Mhm.
So I'd say it's a very mixed bag, but I think it's because I'm a very emotional person. A
Mhm.
lot of people in my life that I've shared this with um, immediately thought that there was an emotional reason why I decided to like leave my faith.
Mhm.
Um, and it wasn't. There was emotions that were obviously a part of it, but initially it was actually extremely intellectual, and my emotions caught up later, because I take a long time to process things emotionally.
Okay.
Like I won't even know I'm angry, like I don't know how I feel, or it'll be like weeks later, and then I'll be like all of a sudden processing everything. So, um, even though I've had a lot of experiences that maybe people would think, oh, that's why you left your faith, that in fact is like not at all. So, so I'd say the emotions were there. So when it comes to empowerment, I actually feel initially, um, I didn't want to deconvert, when I started the process. Um, it was very scary. I was very nervous about my family relationships, like maybe they will disown me,
Yeah.
my marriage, because I'm married to someone who still identifies as a Christian.
Yeah.
Um, my friendships, um, basically my whole community.
Mhm.
Um, and that's a really scary thing to lose,
Mhm.
or the possibility of losing.
Yeah.
Um, so actually it was really terrifying.
Yeah.
I'd say at first, because I had a lot to lose.
Mhm.
But then on this side of it, I feel good that I'm okay with uncertainty,
Mm.
and I'm okay with living there.
That's amazing. I mean, like
Thank you.
that's like that's when you reach a like I don't give a shit like kind of attitude, and not to like disrespect anybody, right? Like you're not disrespecting anybody, but you're being like true to who you are. Like
Mhm.
that's a, and I guess that's the question that I mean. Like as far as how you're feeling now, like you're living your truth. Like does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because that takes
I
a lot of courage. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I feel like it, I think the people I have told, um, I felt very inauthentic
Mm,
if I did not share that with them.
mm,
Um, and I'm very much cards out on the table with everyone in my life, and, so I felt it was very disingenuous of, like, myself
mm,
to not be like, "Hey, this is where I'm at." Um, but also, like, if they mention, like, "Hey, can you pray for me?" Or, "We're going to church, do you wanna come?" And I had to be like slowly be like,
mhm. Like
so those things came up, so I didn't wanna lie,
yeah.
you know? So,
Did the people that you did tell, did they receive it pretty like how did they receive it?
I would say I actually told, um, my brother-in-law first. Well, my husband knew about it first, so I would say him.
Okay.
Um, and he responded good.
Okay.
Um, I was definitely grateful that, like, our whole marriage was not the foundation
Mhm.
of our marriage. I know a lot of people whose marriages may have ended, um, with something that big, like a faith change.
Mhm.
Um, so I'd say he knew first, but he reacted really well, and he's like, "I'm gonna love you no matter what you believe, um,
Oh,
unless it's harmful, or
yeah.
if I'm doing kind of crazy, if I'm like having to murder someone or something, obviously no." But And then I said, then after that, I told my brother-in-law
Okay.
first because he seemed the most safe to tell in the family, because he's wonderful. But I
Oh,
was definitely still nervous.
yeah.
And then I was like, "Do you have any advice for me to how I could tell my sister that, he's married to?"
Mhm.
Um, so we had a nice chat, but he said something that registered with me. He was like, "Well, if anyone's a true Christian, then they should love you no matter what and
Yeah.
not disown you. Um, and they should trust that God has a plan for all of it, right?"
Yeah.
Um, so that was very encouraging for him to say that. I think initially I was really nervous about I didn't know how they would react. So I'm the first one in my family to ever, kind of go this direction.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, I also found myself putting things I was putting expectations on how they would react
Mhm.
because being a Christian for so long, um, was I was anticipating what I knew that they would say in my mind. So I went into it going, "This is how they're gonna react because I've been them and
Yeah.
I've had people come to me." Um, and maybe things like, "Oh, you were never a real Christian."
Mhm.
Um,
Like,
you don't know the
sorry, these were all the thoughts that were just going through your head at that time.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Or maybe, you don't know the Jesus I know. Um, you clearly don't like know your Bible, or maybe you weren't in the right church. So I kind of had these narratives playing in my head. And then when all of them didn't happen, I was very pleasantly surprised. Um, so I would say that so far people in my family that know have responded really, really well. So they have questions, but um, and they disagree with me, but it's we can have those conversations and it's good.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. Like that's seriously that like that's a safe space to be in. You know what I mean? And not a lot of people have that. And like you said, that's your community. So it's not like you wanted to disappoint anybody, but you just wanted to be who you are. And like I said, that takes a lot of courage. That's awesome. Seriously. You know?
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. But I think that's adorable that like you asked your brother-in-law first. Like let me just like test the waters a little bit. Right?
Honestly, I think because um he's very secure in his faith.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not afraid to throw this at him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying my siblings aren't, but also like he didn't grow up with me, so there's a different dynamic there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I knew I could throw things at him and he'd be like, "Well, it doesn't change anything of what I think,
Yeah.
about you or my beliefs." So I felt like I could throw that at him and he would be like, "Okay, cool,
Yeah.
sounds good." And maybe ask me some questions of like, "Well, I want to know how you got there." Um, but which we've had some of those conversations about how I've gotten there, but um I think my biggest thing was I'm like, I don't want to turn this into a theological debate
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like that normally leads to we both are not going to change each other's minds and all we're doing is um
Going back.
getting in arguments.
Yeah.
So
Which I feel like happens though too. Like open,
yeah,
like just in general, no matter what we're taught, like what, no matter what anyone is talking about, no matter the topic or whatever, just open communication is so important in just like saving space for that person. You know what I mean? No matter what you're talking about or who they might be, you know? Because it's not like, okay, I know what you're going through or you know what I'm going through. Like we just have to like save space for each other. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
absolutely.
yeah. So I know that you like mentioned um to me before And I'm kind of shifting gears here. Um,
Yes.
Near death experiences that you might have had.
I'm so excited. No, I'm just kidding. I would say I I would say that I would say near death experiences is there was a possibility that I very well could have died or death was on the table. So I would say me and death have a very strange relationship. I feel like me and the Grim Reaper have just like high fived a couple times in my life. So he's like really tired of seeing me.
Laugh about it.
Because it's just like at this point I'm like, whatever, man. I'm ready whenever it's my time, but hopefully not anytime soon.
Yeah.
So I would say so the first near death experience I would say would be growing up in I was in high school, went to public high school, and I was working a job, and I was really overworked, honestly. I was taking a lot of really hard classes. I was working right after school, like every day, weekends. I was involved in church. I was volunteering um,
You're busy.
at church, so I had a lot going on,
Yeah.
and uh, I was very depressed, and anxious, and I think I didn't have the tools to know that that's what that was. Um, so I ended up abusing drugs, um, and I was taking painkillers and not knowing how much I was taking because I was consistently just getting high.
Mhm.
Um, but for me, it was actually those drugs more numbed my emotions
Mhm.
versus giving me a more of like I was high, but I also was like just very numb. So I ended up, I was at work and I went into I had a seizure.
Oh wow.
Um, and I was taken to the hospital. Um, and because I was like, someone found me on the floor at work.
Yeah.
So my parents found out at the hospital that I was doing drugs. And of course, they're like, my A student who goes to church and works and is this good kid. And all of a sudden, we're getting this phone call, which I'm sure was very scary.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say that was probably my first where that was a very severe medical event that could have gone very poorly if someone wouldn't have found me
Yeah.
when they did.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
but can I say too real quick, like how you just said, no one knew like that you were going through this and you were taking painkillers. You know what I mean, just to kind of numb your emotions. You know, it happens all the time. Like, and I it happens all the time. And I'm sure like you're so busy and you're just trying to keep your mind um constantly going, I guess, or like just trying to block everything out. But that's crazy, but it happens all the time, you know?
it really does. And uh, I've been in a relationship with an addict.
Hmm.
And then I've also worked with different programs with addicts, and it's a very common narrative
Hmm.
that people are self-medicating in this way, um, and obviously abusing that and like not seeking help.
Hmm.
Um, I think for me, part of it was the religious community that I grew up in was going to therapy, especially secular therapy, was very frowned upon.
Really?
If you went to therapy, it was like you go to your pastor or you go to a Christian therapist.
Oh, okay. Okay.
A lot of stigma of maybe you should pray more, have more faith, God will heal you, or why would you be sad?
Mm.
When you have Jesus and he's done all he has done for you, kind of thing.
So not really getting to the root of the problem.
And feeling like shame and guilt about not being happy
Mm-hmm.
or not anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Because both of those are almost kind of like a sin, like especially anxiety, I would say. Because we're supposed to be at peace and filled with joy.
Did you say that it's almost like a sin? Really?
I would say like anxiety and depression, not that they say this outright. I've heard some churches say it outright, but it's definitely frowned upon, um, that you shouldn't, that's some sort of lacking in yourself. Like if that's a you problem
Wow.
versus like a more medical problem, if
Wow.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I would say that was my first experience with that, with like near death kind of or possibility of like very close. Um, and then after that, I would say um, I was in a very unsafe marriage for several years. I was uh, basically being a caretaker at different times in a way for someone who was in a lot of pain, um, and was an alcoholic and abused drugs.
Mhm.
Um, and he was in a lot of pain, and so he uh, inflicted pain on me because I was the closest person to him.
Mhm.
Um, so I was in a very unsafe environment. So I would say that you know, from the reactions with interactions with him were very unsafe, and then also I became severely depressed then
Mhm.
because I was in a constant state of fight or flight
Yeah.
and anxiety, and I definitely had a lot of like suicidal thoughts and tendencies during that time.
Mhm.
um so I would say I got to some points where I definitely needed some help, but I didn't seek it because I was in a very isolated place with that relationship, and I was physically away from a lot of my friends and community because
Mhm.
we were living far away from my family and stuff, so no one had any idea what was going on.
Yeah.
So I would say that, and then I had a weird moment of not that this is a near death experience for me, but um, I had a man. If you can imagine, I was coming home from work and I parked in a parking spot near our apartment
Mhm.
um, at the time, and a man was sitting in his car next to me.
Mhm.
And I was like, huh, that's weird. I've never seen him before.
Mhm.
And I got out, ran up to my apartment, and changed to go to the gym. And I came back down and got in my car, and he shot himself in the head.
Wow.
Um, so I had to call, 911 and all that. Um,
Did you
so I
see
think, hmm?
before you went up the stairs? Did he already do it, or you?
No, he had not,
Oh my God.
because he was moving to my knowledge, like he was moving.
Oh.
Um, so that definitely was a moment of I just had never seen anything like that. So I think that did kind of change some of my views on death, of just seeing someone actually go through with um with taking their life. And I was also at a point where I was considering that, or I was struggling with that. And so I feel like that honestly pulled me out of that because I saw what it did to me, like some stranger. I didn't know him personally, and has affected my life. Um, or children who could have walked by, or something like that. And I'm sure, obviously, the people who loved him, he affected their lives as well.
Yeah.
Um, and it's made me, so that was kind of one, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, I had open heart surgery, as you know,
Yeah.
um, which is was very interesting
Yeah.
because I had a lot of prep time
Mhm.
to think about what's if I go into this and I don't come out. Which also I had just stopped calling myself a Christian and had also stopped believing in Jesus and the Holy Spirit, which was like the last things to kind of go for me, like a year before my surgery. So I went in very fresh of like, what's if I die and what's after that? Is this it kind of thing? So I had a lot of existential crisis kind of going on. But I was okay with that, and I kind of came to this really cool place of like peace of, if this is it, like I had a good life and I'm happy with that. But that I really don't want to go yet, So that I was like, all right, body, I know I'm about to put you through like literally cracking you open. But I'm gonna need you to work, I'm gonna need you to come back.
Don't give up on me now. You're like, don't give up on me now.
Literally. And I'm sure we'll go into it, but also the feelings on embodiment and stuff and how far I've come with that has been a big thing. I'm very thankful for this body that I have. Because she has, man, she's kept me alive. There's some shit. I'm like, thank you.
Seriously.
So
it's the thing, so right? Like it's the little things that we take for granted.
And I started calling my body a she. Because I feel like saying it doesn't feel right. Like this, it's like I treat her like a friend, like if my friend was tired and was like, I'm hurting today, I really need to lay down and take a nap. I'm not gonna be like, keep going, you can't quit now, how dare you be tired and you're fat and get it, get your ass up, so I would never say those things. So so I would say that. So I had open heart surgery, and then I had a lot of complications after that. I almost went into a heart attack, and I had internal bleeding, and I was having severe complications and had to go back to the hospital. And the ambulance ride there, I was definitely like, this might for a little bit. So,
wow. Is that while you were having? So did you have the heart attack, or like was your body acting like it was going to have a heart attack? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I was having severe tachycardia.
Okay.
And it basically was like almost like I was getting ready to.
Wow.
So, but they were shooting me full of medicine and everything else under the sun. So, because thankfully I was actually at the hospital getting fluids when I went into this episode. So they were there right when it started to happen. And then I was transferred back to the hospital that I had most of my procedures done. And that ambulance ride was very long, even though it was only probably about an hour. But the man,
it was an hour?
Probably, yeah, because to get to downtown Atlanta, it was about an hour.
Wow.
And I would say like the EMT was literally holding me in the stretcher that I was like strapped down in, because he didn't want me to just like be jostled. Because my blood was so thin, and he was literally like yelling at the driver that not to hit any potholes. And he's like, I will literally come up there and fire you if you hit any potholes. So I think that was a different level of scary because it wasn't planned. It was something out of my control that just was happening to me. Which leads me into my final near-death experience of of I
Wait,
had
there's more? I didn't even.
yeah, there's more. I had a stroke um following my heart surgery months later. Um
Okay, wait, Mia.
and
How
hmm,
long has it been now since you've had your heart
uh,
surgery? Let's.
mm, so I had my heart surgery in June of 2020.
Okay.
So
Are
we're
you
coming up on a year
okay?
almost.
Wait, of June of 2020 or 2021?
Oh wait,
That's almost 2 years.
no, it would have been 2021. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I'm
Okay.
wrong.
Okay. All right. But
It's all been a jumble.
seriously, I mean, these past couple of years are like
Yes.
they're moving.
Yeah.
Are you still having complications now from it, like to this day, or you're
Um,
you're doing
I would say now I'm still being treated for what's called pericarditis, where your heart lining, like the sac that your heart sits in, the lining gets super thick and inflamed.
okay?
And so your heart rubs up against that lining because it's super inflamed and it causes a lot of pain.
Mhm.
So I'm still being treated for that, which I've had off and on after surgery. Um, but I'm hoping that that will eventually go away and I can come off that treatment. Um, so it'll probably be a few years until I feel better. Because after, after all that and then later having a stroke, I've just put my body's just not healing.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time to recover before I feel good again.
Did they say that it was the complications that caused the stroke?
So the stroke was from, um, it was caused by my heart valve.
Okay.
Um, and basically, with my blood thinners, they were correct. Everything was working fine. I
Mhm.
literally in the 0.001% chance that I had it. Um, so my surgeon definitely came in and told me that. He was like, everything looks great. It literally is just that one in a million kind of thing. Um, so for those of you who don't know what a stroke is, so I know a lot of my friends and people who are a little bit younger don't really know what a stroke actually is. But basically, with mine, um, it's where a blood clot travels to your brain, um, and blocks part of the brain, like oxygen from the brain, and then part of the brain dies. So what happened with me was it traveled from my heart on my left side and then went up through my carotid artery on my right,
Mhm.
and then partially was blocking an artery um, that was controlling my left side. Because with strokes, it's your right side controls your left side of your body and vice versa.
Right.
Um, so where it was really important. So they didn't go in and try to get the clot.
Mhm.
Um, so they pumped me full of medicine and try to thin my blood as quickly as they could.
Yeah.
Um, and during that process, part of the clot that was partially blocking one of my really important areas flicked off, and I had multiple mini strokes after that. Um,
Wow.
so when you look at my scans, it's literally like a dark blotch where I had the partial blockage, and then I have like a scattering of like little parts of my brain that were damaged throughout. So I've lost feeling in my left hand. Um, and I have some memory and speech. Like when I'm really tired, I start to slur,
Mhm.
or I can't remember things. Um, but I had to relearn how to walk properly, how to drive, um, how to just do my job as a hairdresser. I had to work on mannequins for a while. So, but they said it would probably be a couple years before I feel like myself, but that left-sided weakness, I'm gonna just have to continue with therapy to
Mhm.
try to get everything back to where it was. So
Wow.
but you can do it. To all the people who have ever had a stroke, um,
Right.
I will tell you that
Yeah.
being positive and going to therapy and doing the things works.
Yeah. And just like being in that space. I mean, because you have such a good attitude. Like you have been through so much shit. Serious-
Thank you.
Seriously.
Well,
But you still have such a good attitude, you know what I mean? And I love that about you.
oh, thank you. So nice.
Well, okay, so
Uh,
let me ask you this. With everything that you have been through, just in life in general,
mhm.
is there anything that you regret?
Ooh, I love this question. This is a good question.
Take your time.
Um, so anything I regret? Um, I feel like initially my answer wants to be no
Okay.
because everything makes you who you are.
Yep.
Um, and so I wouldn't change my path
Yep.
for anything,
Mhm.
but I do regret the people I've hurt
Mm,
along the way.
mhm,
Um, I've in my hurt people,
mhm.
and when I was hurting, I have hurt people, and I do regret that. I wish I would have acted differently, or I would have been in a better mindset.
Mhm.
Um, so I would say that that I could have probably I want to reduce harm in the world, and I've hurt people, and so I'd say that that's probably what I regret is just people I've hurt
Yeah.
before.
So, and it sounds like it, with all your experiences, it's kind of taught you something too. Like, would you say that?
Oh my gosh, so many things it has taught me. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, I mm, I think what I feel like it's changed me. Obviously, every big experience,
Mhm.
changes you, especially if they're traumatic. Um, and but I've learned a lot about me
Mhm.
and about my shadow self because
Mm.
she likes to come out and play sometimes, and we've learned to love her,
That's
you
right.
know.
That's right. Seriously.
Seriously,
Yeah.
she's scary, but we love her. But so I would say that I've learned to be very grateful.
Mhm.
Um, which sounds so cheesy, but
No,
I really, yeah.
it's true. Gratitude is everything. So go ahead.
Um, I'd say being grateful for the things that we have because through stroke to near death experiences to, I mean, accidents happen. Your life can change at any moment
Yeah.
for good or bad.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like I've learned to just be grateful for the things I do have because I've had those things taken from me or, you know, um, out of my control. Um, so I'm just grateful that I have this body that works, even though it's part cyborg and a little laggy on the left side, but
But
she's gotten me through.
she's still going.
Uh-huh. Hey, she's still going and she has served me well, even though I've talked a lot of trash about her, you know, um, many times, but embodiment has helped me a lot with that. So I'd say gratefulness, um, not being a victim, which,
That's a good one. Seriously. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to stay there.
Hmm.
I think you should feel what you need to feel. Because I think a lot of people could put me with that label of being a victim of circumstance or a victim of someone else or bad luck or whatever you want to call it. um so I would say not being a victim, because that's a defeated place,
Mhm.
and I'm refuse to be defeated by anything. So I think it's working through that hurt, but not staying there. Um, and then, so I'd say gratefulness, not being a victim, and um,
They're both
mm,
amazing.
yeah, I'd say those are kind of the two big ones.
Yeah,
I'd probably say.
that's amazing, especially that not being a victim, because it's so easy to fall into that, into that space. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very, very hard not to fall in. It's very, it's nice to fall in the hole because the hole's comfortable
Mhm.
and we like the hole and we're like, this is a nice grave we've dug here. Or maybe we were put there. But I've gotten really tired of being there.
Yeah.
So I quickly climb up out of that hole and I'm up back on the top because I ain't got time to be there anymore. So yeah, I would say those two for sure.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on Conversation with Robin. I love you, Mimi.
I love you too. This was so nice. Thank you. Oh,
I'm just, you are literally like my number one to like fan, just in general, because you just have hyped me up so much to be in this space right now. So thank you for that. For real, for real. And I
you
like
have stuff to say and you have valuable wisdom to share. So,
saying, but we all do, you know what I mean? And like we have to just get the conversation going. That's the only way to do it. So thank you, Mimi. I love you.
yes. Bye.
Bye.